Welcome back to the Nick Bartlett Show, everybody. Last week, Dane and I broke down the top 12 quarterbacks in the SuperWest region. Today, I got Stephen Vilardo with me, and we're going to be doing the same thing, except we're going to be doing the top 12 running backs. And Dane, Stephen, and I make up SuperWest Sports during the football season, but today we're doing something just a little bit different. So, Steve, you want to say hello?
Yeah, it's good to be here with you again. It'll be fun. Looking forward to a good college football season this upcoming 2024. A lot of changes, a lot of excitement. So looking forward to it and looking forward to talking about some running backs today.
Certainly, so many changes. Not getting into all that today, but yeah,
All
good.
for another show.
truthfully. So first question, and actually the biggest surprise when reading your piece is, how good is Ashton Genty? I thought he was. I realized he was good, but toting him as the potential best back in the nation surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, he's really he's a the full package. I mean, he's he can, he's a good three-way back. He can catch the ball, return good in special teams, excellent between the tackles and in space, can bust open plays left and right. I think whether or not he's the best back in the country, I don't know. I think he's going to be the first running back taken in the draft next April. And I think that's a sure thing. Obviously there's some other talent here, and we'll get into it in this West region. And I really the top four I kind of really like out of what I ranked. And then I see a slight drop off after that, but it could have been, obviously Jaden Knott's really good too. I could have put him at the top, but I think Genty's just a little bit more of a full package. And if you put Genty on any Power Four team. I think there's legitimate Heisman talk. I mean, I know Boise State's kind of got some legitimate Heisman talk with him as well, but I don't, among outsiders, and the Heisman's tough for some running backs to win, anyways. Sometimes, uh, just the way the numbers get skewed. And I'm not necessarily talking Heisman for Genty, but I do think if he was, if you threw him on a Ohio State, a USC, something like that, there would be a lot of Heisman preseason hype going his way, because I think he is that good. And and among the top in the country, I think he's definitely among the top 3, 4 in the country for sure. I put him right there with some of those other guys that in different conferences as well in different regions. There's probably about 4 or 5 that are just really good, and I think he's definitely one of them. So, but yeah, he's he can make plays out of the backfield, through the air and on the ground, and huge asset for Boise State.
Yeah, no, I always thought of him as more of a tandem back with Hilani last year, but I really didn't realize how good he was. So it should be fun to watch. And as you mentioned, when players are in that power four, they just receive a little bit different respect, whether it's right or not. There's great players everywhere. Obviously, from top to bottom, the standpoint's gonna be a little bit thicker at the highest level, but they're great players everywhere. And hopping into the second question, you kind of led me just as Dane did last week. I kind of probably should have broken down who you got in your list. So I'll start with the top six. Correct me if I am wrong here. So I believe you had Ashton Genty at the number 1 spot. At the 2 spot, you had Jade Knott, Cal. 3 spot, Jordan James, Oregon. 4 spot, Harrison Whaley, Wyoming. 5 spot, Jonah Coleman, Washington. And the 6th spot, did you have, was it Malik Sherrod, Fresno State?
Correct. Yeah, he was sixth, and that was you had them correct. They're 1 through 6. Indeed.
Awesome. And sorry for interrupting there. Heading over to the kind of next question, though. We got basically, I like the 3 through 5 spots on your list. I like all these players for different reasons. They're 2 of them are kind of similar, but you got Jordan James, Harrison Whaley, and Jonah Coleman. Do you have a favorite out of this group?
I've got Jordan James ranked the highest of them. So he's my 3. So I guess kind of by default, I like him maybe the best out of him. But that's actually a great question though, and I've got him there because he's going to kind of be the lead guy in Oregon's running attack, as he ran behind Bucky Irvin last year. And he still put up, I think, ran for like over 7 yards a carry and put up 765 yards on the ground last year. So and he doesn't lose many yards. I think on last year he had on 107 carries, I think only 6 of them or six negative total yards, I think was what it ended up being. So that's, anytime you're getting that kind of production. But I guess to be fair, in reality, I almost like Whaley the best out of those three. I mean, I have him fourth because I do think James is going to put up more numbers. I think he's going to be more productive for Oregon just in the way that they run that. But Whaley is the kind of guy I mean, because that Cowboy offense, it's or the really the entire philosophy of them. It's play good defense, don't turn the ball over, run the ball, control the clock. And if Wyoming's going to be successful, it's going to be going through Harrison Whaley, and he just churns out yards after yards after yards. I mean, he had some injuries last year, got sidelined a little bit, still almost wound up with 900 or with 1,000 yards. So I think he was about 947 or somewhere in there. So if he can stay healthy, I mean, I see him in that the way that offense is tailored. Um, and I mean, and he's kind of a bigger back, but he's also got the explosive stuff against Texas last year. His first appearance since he transferred, first appearance for the Cowboys, and he ran for 110 in Austin. I mean, that's just kind of a good welcome for him. So I really, really like Whaley. I think you're going to see huge numbers from Jordan James at Oregon there too. I mean, think of what Irvin did, and I think he could probably surpass that even because he's just. I mean, he doesn't lose any yards. He's always making positive plays out of everything. And then I guess to talk about Jonah Coleman as well, uh, following Jed Fish up to Washington from Arizona, another guy that's just explosive. An average like 6.96 yards per carry last year. I mean, what against Colorado, I think he almost 180 yards on like 10 carries, 11 carries, whatever it was. So that the explosiveness was shown there. So I mean, he could be a big jolt for Washington. I mean, the Washington offense is going to look different just because they've got a lot of new parts in that offense, and I think Coleman could be a big cog for them.
Yeah, no, I loved Coleman's physicality at Arizona and hopping back to Wyoming. There's just something about, and I'll save my singing for my fearless predictions in the off season. But for
I
there's something. What we're gonna say.
I was gonna say, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, you picked the Wyoming game pretty much every week just so you could, or last year rather, just so you could get some singing references in there. So yeah, you're very familiar with Wyoming and their style of play.
I'm like, so I'm gonna have to wait it out. It's I think a little too early in the off season to break out my singing voice. But yeah, there is just something like you alluded to. There's just something special when you have for the way I view football and I feel about football, having a good running game and a solid defense in a rugged place like Wyoming. I enjoy that style of football. So that's just me.
Yeah, and
Hopping.
and you get I mean, you said it there too, the rugged style of football in a rugged place because I mean there could be a lot of snow games in Laramie and in the mountains there. So yeah, the running game will be leaned on heavily.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, it results in some few more wins this year, I should say. Moving forward, though, I want to say, so the one thing I guess I was surprised most on your list, I understand the injury aspect, but to see Micah Bernard at the number 8 spot, do you think he can make a jump into the top 5 by the end of the season?
I think he definitely could. I think for sure. I mean, he's because Utah is again. They're a physical team. They like to run the ball. Yeah, and he was, he his season last year was bookended. Played the first game of the year, played in the bowl game. So I mean, missed what the 12 in between there or whatever it was that Utah played. So yeah, I mean, if he stays healthy and he should be the featured back for Utah. And I mean, and with that is going to come a lot of production. So yeah, I think he could definitely move up for sure. And especially statistics wise, I mean, I think those top four, I kind of still think are just maybe slightly better, and then Coleman even in the fifth spot there too. But yeah, I definitely think at the end of the year we could talk about Micah Bernard for sure being, potentially all Big or yeah Big 12 player, kind of candidate with the way that their style goes. And I mean, I think Utah could be winning the Big 12 anyways. I think they're a lot of people's pick to do that anyways. So yeah, I think for sure you could see the production of him being up, closer to one of these top four, top five guys in this list.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think Utah's historic. I can't speak on his talent level, maybe necessarily with the top 4, but just knowing they had like a third stringer, like a safety, and like Sione Vaki playing running back last year, I'd imagine that things would go up. And yeah, as you mentioned, wherever Utah goes, it feels like they win. So I'd imagine successful offense, successful defense, particularly offense in the Big 12. Um, let's see what's the next question I got written down here. Okay, so we're going to the bottom four, which is actually, I mean, there's still the top 12 running backs, but out of the bottom four, and actually this might be a good time to round out your list. I'm missing the number 7 spot, so I'm very sorry, but you got
Well,
Mike.
I'm gonna go ahead and tell you then, because the number 7 spot is the kind of guy, and I'll interrupt you with like maybe a question of who's your kind of sleeper on this list, and that would be my number 7 spot is Cedric Irvin at Stanford. He saw limited action last year in his first year for the Cardinal, but when he did play, there were some glimpses of what he can do. And his first career start against Cal, ran for 66 yards on 10 carries. This year he's going to kind of have the featured role for them. His dad was a running back at Michigan State. His uncle is Michael Irvin, the playmaker, or not uncle, I should say cousin. His cousin is Michael Irvin, and I think he could kind of fit that role for Stanford as a playmaker in the backfield. I mean, he's kind of the guy that could kind of go either way on this list, and it could be the kind of guy that maybe we're not talking about him all at the end of the year, or maybe we're talking about him as wow, that was a big kind of bonus production that Stanford got out of Cedric Irvin all season long. And I kind of lean towards the successful part of him, and I think he's going to have a good season for Stanford. I think Stanford could still struggle a little bit in their first year in the ACC. They still got a lot of kind of pieces and gaps to fill in, but I think at the running back spot they should be in good shape.
Yeah, no, that's actually a perfect lead. So you got Cedric Irvin at the 7 spot. At the 8 spot, we just touched on Micah Bernard. And then I believe you got at 9, 10, 11, and 12, Robert Briggs Jr., Utah State, Cam Scadaboo, Arizona State, Sean Dollars, Nevada, and Woody Marks. I said a lot there, but out of the bottom 4, who do you like out of the bottom 4?
I like them all really, but when you get there, the one that I like the most, I think, is going to be Robert Briggs Jr. because this is another guy who was kind of the second, third option last year a lot of times for the Aggies, and in their offense they want to run the ball a lot, and he had a solid sophomore year in a limited role. This year he should be. I would assume the number one on the depth chart. I mean, he should definitely be number one on the depth chart, and I think you're going to see the numbers jump drastically. And I think he could definitely be flirting with a 1,000-yard season. I know they kind of try to play normally at least a few different backs in there and kind of rotate them in and out. So I mean, I think 900 should be definitely kind of an attainable thing if he stays healthy. But I think if he stays healthy, he's going to be a 1,000-yard back easily. And again, another guy that can kind of make a lot of plays in different ways. And then the 12th spot for me is Woody Marks at USC, as you mentioned. And I think he actually could be. Again, there's some question marks there, and I mean, and USC's got a lot of backs in there. But I think if he gets the kind of touches that he that maybe he should get, maybe he'd like to get it, whatever it is. He was very productive at Mississippi State. It gets a lot of tough yards. Playing in the Big Ten and some November games in the Midwest, Upper Midwest. USC might need to get those tough yards against some of those defenses now, and I think that's another guy that can do that. And he enters this season having caught a pass in 45 straight games, which is the 4th longest active streak in the nation too. So not just a tough yards kind of back, but he also obviously can make plays out of the backfield in the passing game too, which will be big for USC. And then I guess we'll just talk about the other ones too a little bit. Sean Dollars is another guy. I mean, in Nevada. Nevada's, obviously they struggled last year, new coaching staff, but he's got a lot of talent. Started off at Oregon, transferred to Reno. They struggled last year, but Jeff Choate wants the offense to be more explosive this year, have a lot of big plays. I think we could look for Dollars to have some big plays in the vertical run game because they're going to have it's going to be a vertical offense for them, and I think they're going to want to do a lot of things. And then Scadaboo just did everything last year for Arizona State. I mean, I think he lined up at quarterback a few times, caught some passes. He punted the ball. I mean, I think he averaged almost 50 yards a punt. I know he had 3 of them that were 50-plus yards last year on 8 or 9 punts throughout the season. So, I mean, he did just about everything. And another guy that 164 attempts, and he only lost 13 yards last year. So, I mean, and that's for an Arizona State team that for lack of a better term, did not have much offensive production, and the line wasn't great. The quarterback play, obviously, if he had to play quarterback, wasn't great. The injuries just mounted up, and still only 13 total lost yards in 164 attempts. So you got a guy who rarely has unproductive runs. So definitely good. But to answer your question very long windedly, I think Woody Marks could be the guy that we look at, but I still kind of like Briggs to be of Utah State is kind of the best of my bottom four there.
Yeah, I haven't seen enough of Briggs. I think you watch more of Briggs. In regards to the USC and regards to Woody Marks, I like that addition. Just you have a tough runner coming down from down south where there's a high level of physicality in football, and you saw that work out for Washington last year. I'm forgetting the running back who transferred in and was a big piece of the national championship. He got injured in the game, but same type of guy, tough runner from down south, so could benefit USC and. Yeah, being in a new conference, when you got the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Wisconsins, the Iowas, having a physical piece could definitely help out. So I think you touched on Cedric Irvin. So I'm just gonna. I don't think we need to talk about Jaden not too much. I think we already know he's a star. I guess the one thing I can ask kind of change the pace a little bit. Do you think Cal could? Do you think he can maybe help Cal get a couple more wins this year?
If he's healthy, I think he could. Because obviously, he needs if he gets 1,156 yards, he's going to be the Cal all-time leading rusher. I think Cal's got some pieces, especially on the defensive side of the ball, which I think we'll probably get into in a couple weeks when we talk about some DBs in the Super West for sure, and even some linebackers probably with Dane. I think you're going to see. I think Cal's got a chance to really be kind of a surprise team in the ACC. Among the newer teams, I think SMU and Cal kind of, might be and I admittedly am not, I'm much more higher up in my mind wise on the Big Ten and the Mountain West and those kind of things, and even the Big 12 to a little bit. Haven't looked at the ACC much, but what I have looked at, I think Cal could kind of be a surprise team, especially of the new ones, along with SMU, kind of as the highest of the newcomers, perhaps. And I really think they could kind of get a lot of wins. And I think it's going to be defense and running the football. And then obviously, if they can get their quarterback play figured out, which they kind of started to at the end of the year, and they finished the season on a strong point, and Wilcox kind of obviously kept his job because of that winning streak going. But yeah, Jaden Knott could. I think he could have a huge year for Cal. And I think, I wrote in there that him returning to Berkeley for this season kind of gives Cal a legitimate shot to win some games in the ACC, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think they have a legitimate shot because they have a legitimate star on offense in the backfield.
I'm not going to swear, but that's real talk. I want to use a different word there. When you have a star, you do have a chance to win games. And yeah, I think just sometimes a change of pace is a good thing. Obviously, I'm West Coast resided, so a lot of people might not like the dissipation of the Pac-12. But for Cal, it could be a nice change to go to the ACC, see some new opponents. Felt like, obviously, like you touched on, they made that great run to sneak into a bowl game last year. But prior to that, it felt like they'd been vastly underperforming for a long time, even with some talented players. So going to the ACC, in a weird way, could be a good thing for Cal. And I think kind of just rounding up, I call it some house cleaning stuff because people always say housekeeping. So we're gonna create an original analogy or synonym or whatever you want to call it, an antonym, whatever they taught me in 7th grade English class. So you can tell that's a degree right there. So basically, the only two players we haven't discussed yet are Malik Sherrod from Fresno State. I really like him pairing with Mikey Keene. And then your honorable mention in J.M. Griffin at Oregon State. You just kind of have some final thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, so Sherrod's again a kind of a versatile back that can do a lot of different things for Fresno State, and it's a good offense, and it's always going to be a good offense. They're the way that they're coached and everything. It's going to be they're going to have production offensively, and you think about all the good quarterbacks that have come through there recently, but the running game is also huge for Fresno State, and Sherrod is versatile. It sounded like I'm beating a dead horse with a lot of these terms, but again, out of the backfield, he can make plays both on the ground and catching the ball, and that's huge in their offense. And there's every time he touches the ball, it could be a potential big play too because he's got that explosiveness. And Jam Griffin. He's this is Oregon State's his third spot in his collegiate career. I mean, he had limited roles at Georgia Tech, limited roles at Ole Miss. Obviously, at Ole Miss, he was behind uh, some running backs. I mean, Jenkins, who's now at Ohio State, who might be the second string running back at Ohio State, but might be the best running back in the country. So I mean, obviously, when he was behind him at Ole Miss, there wasn't a lot of opportunities, rather, kind of being second, third fiddle there. But the potential is there with Griffin, and if he's going to be the featured back at Oregon State, I think we could see a lot of production out of him. Honorable mention on this list. I mean, that obviously somebody's got to be kind of 13th out of the 12. But again, it's because there's a lot of unknown because there was limited production in those first two stops that he had. And the new world of college football, it's stop number 3 for a player, and you never know what might happen there. But the potential is definitely there, and as a featured back, I think he could produce.
Hey man, honorable mention, all good. We got some Pac-2 love, some Pac-2 love. Let's get the Pac-2 on that list. But no, in all seriousness, Oregon State historically has a good rushing attack. Little interested with the Jonathan Smith leaving and seeing how things will translate. But I think I know there's a lot of fire within the Pac-2 fan base. And I'm just interested to see how those. We'll throw WSU in there too, because obviously I'm alumni. But how Oregon State will perform and. Jam Griffin will be a big part because when they have a good rushing attack, they're pretty solid. And then just the last kind of thoughts. I think you might have actually answered this unknowingly, but kind of just two things. I'll just throw them together at this point. Who's your favorite back in the nation, or just you think's the best, or however you interpret that question? And then just anything else you'd like to add before we get out of here.
So I mean, obviously, I like Genty a lot, and I put him in the kind of that top 4. I think Ollie Gordon at Oklahoma State. Obviously, I mean, I think he led the nation last year. I mean, he's does a lot of things really well for Oklahoma State. I think he's probably, I would say, my number one, if not number 1A. And then the two guys at Ohio State, I think I mentioned Quinshon Judkins that came over from Ole Miss and transferred to Ohio State. Probably number 2 on their depth chart behind Travion Henderson, but I mean, I think either one of those guys could kind of be, 1A, 1B, definitely in their offense, and perhaps, maybe 1A, 1B, or 2A, 2B, I guess, if you would, if I put them behind Gordon, but kind of those two could be kind of the number 2 running backs that I kind of like out there. I personally like Judkins better. I think he kind of has a more complete game. But Henderson's established there too, so uh, that would be my answer. If there's your kind of the 4 running backs, I guess I kind of like the best nationally. I think I'd put kind of Gordon up there, that Ohio State backfield then, and then Ashton Genty as well, and then Jaden Ott I think is right there with those guys too in the top 5 or 6 or 7. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a lot of running backs much better than Genty and Ott for sure. And then I think nationally it starts and ends with Gordon. I think he's probably earned the right to be called the best running back, at least heading into 2024.
Yeah, no, got the country covered there. Got the SuperWest region covered. Got what do you call Middle America covered, and then my dad's from Ohio State, so you didn't shout out a Michigan guy, so we're good to go. So all love. But yeah, so everyone, is there? I guess I already asked you once, but any final words before I take us out of here?
No, I'm again just looking forward to a good season. Good to be back talking to you about football.
Yeah, man, no, it's good to be back for sure. I'm glad that we can find some normalcy in these top ranking the top 12 running backs because as it currently stands, everything's unknown entering this new era of college football. And even though my team may be a little bit tough situation, it should still be a lot of fun. So I hope people aren't crying, and I hope people, man, it's still college football. Come out and enjoy it. Should be good stuff. Good players all over the country. So this has been the Nick Bartlett Show. Thank you guys for tuning in, and see you guys later.